And this, ladies and gentlemen, is why we should not look forward to a future where all content is digital. And this is what gaming is pursuing. We have seen like patents for a future edition of Xbox where it's basically digital only, and generally gaming companies and corporations would like to see this trend where it's all digital fully realized. But when you look at what's going on right now with Sony, you realize that, man, anything can happen, including stuff that you purchase just getting stripped entirely. So right here we have a tweet from Jeff Rousseau that has gone kind of viral, 2.1 million views. He tweeted, "This is why physical media matters. Apparently, play does have limits." So PlayStation, once upon a time, would allow you to rent or purchase digital movies. They've closed down that service, but the idea was that this wouldn't affect existing customers and existing content that has been purchased, and that stuff would be accessible. Well, we're looking at a situation now where that content is being removed. Right here, we have a notice that PlayStation sent out to customers that reads, "Dear PlayStation customer, as of December 31st, 2023, due to our content licensing arrangements with content providers, you will no longer be able to watch any of your previously purchased Discovery content, and the content will be removed from your library." Now, yes, this specific situation revolves around movies and shows, but it's digital content, and this could very well happen to games. And this case specifically revolves around the gaming console PlayStation, which has additional functions like, or had additional functions like being able to buy or rent on-demand movies. And that is an investment that people put in, trusting that PlayStation would not pull something like this. But alas, things like this just can happen. In this case, it's about some kind of licensing issue. And again, you will not be able to watch any of your previously purchased Discovery content. It's not that it's being removed from storefronts, but you get to keep what you've downloaded or purchased. It's that the stuff that you paid for is being stripped from you. Like, it's straight up just robbery. And the thing is, back in March 2nd, 2021, when PlayStation announced that the PlayStation Store will discontinue movie and TV purchases and rentals, they assured, as you can see right here, that users can still access movie and TV content they've purchased through PlayStation Store. And the reason they closed down on-demand purchases is because of the rise of subscription-based and ad-based entertainment streaming services, which I guess makes sense, but you started this service, you allowed people to buy digital content, and for there to be a situation where that content can just be entirely removed from access that is not ethical at all. Some examples of what might be deleted from your library if you own Discovery TV content include Mythbusters. Mythbusters. Good times. If you purchase Mythbusters, that stuff's gone. Naked and Afraid, and tons of other Discovery shows from PlayStation users' libraries, even if they already purchase them. Ladies and gentlemen, if this can happen to movies and TV shows, it can happen to games. As long as it's digital content that you don't physically own, it may very well disappear because the existence of that digital content and access to it is dependent on the provider and licensing aspects remaining intact. You can see going to Reddit that there are already customers who are confused by this development. Here is a Reddit user who posted, "Purchase Discovery video content being removed. I just received an email from PlayStation about how the end of the year, due to licensing arrangements, I'll no longer be able to watch any of my previously purchased Discovery content. Is there a way I can save this content? I use PlayStation 4, but I've bought many seasons of shows such as Dual Survival that I do not wish to lose. I was actually under the impression, since I owned it, I wouldn't ever lose it." Now, many people who are in tune with gaming news and stuff might know that when you purchase digital content, it's more of like a license rather than true ownership, but that's not something that the masses know. The masses believe that when you spend money on something, you rightfully own it, and that's kind of all they think about without other factors in mind. But now we have confused customers who are beginning to realize that digital content is not necessarily always a safe course of purchase. And unfortunately, there's no official way to somehow save that purchased content. The only way, I guess, is to engage in quote-unquote piracy, as some people have suggested here. But at that point, can you even call it piracy when you spent money on something that they're now taking away? If you download that show through, I don't know, torrenting or whatnot, I think at this point, morally speaking, you have every right to do that. Or the alternative is, of course, to go physical, whether it's DVD or Blu-ray or whatnot. If you purchase that stuff that's already in the disc, unless somebody literally sneaks into your house and breaks into it and steals your physical disc, you will own it forever so long as it's maintained and no damage comes upon it. Whereas with digital content is completely beholden to corporations, their services, their platforms, and behind-the-scenes goings-ons like licensing issues. And this is not the first time this has happened. As reported by The Verge here on July 8th, 2022, there was a previous instance in which the PlayStation Store removed purchased movies from libraries after service shutdown. And it was for the same reason, because of evolving license agreements with content providers. And back then, you lost access to content like Paddington, The Hunger Games, so on and so forth. Now, this particular event affected Germany and Austria specifically, but those are still people who spent money on something that is now just disappearing into the ether. And this situation was also in the hundreds of digital content, be it movies or TV shows. The changes affects 314 titles in Germany and 137 in Austria. Affected titles include Chicken Run, John Wick, La La Land, Logan Lucky, Saw, Shaun the Sheep Movie, and Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, among many others. And as The Verge aptly highlights here, the shutdown serves as a crucial reminder that even when you buy a title digitally, your ownership often still relies on a retailer continuing to exist and having the correct licensing deals in place. If you want to guarantee ownership forever, then physical purchases are still your best bet. And the same could be said for video games, though with games it's a bit more complicated, because with movies and shows and whatnot, when they're in a Blu-ray disc, it's just a video file. And so there's not much in the way of measures to restrict access to those elements within the physical medium. Whereas with games, because of things like DRM and because of patches that might have to be applied that are not included in the disc, even physical media is not necessarily always a sure thing that you will fully own those titles and that you'll be able to access them forever. But generally, it is safer to purchase physical media, especially from game companies who really make sure that people have access to all the content within the cartridge or disc. And one company worth celebrating for really just championing physical releases is Larian Studios. I don't know if you heard about this, but on November of 2023, it was announced that Baldur's Gate 3 is getting a gorgeous deluxe physical edition with actual discs in it. This is a physical release for PC, which is rare, PlayStation 5, and Xbox Series X. And what's great about this physical release is that it contains all of the content and updates that have been released thus far. So you really are getting a complete package. And on top of that, you get these extra goodies, and all that comes at a pretty reasonable price point of $80. I mean, for the whole game itself, on top of the stickers and the map here and the soundtrack and all these things, I mean, the AAA landscape right now is at a point where game purchases, just the base price is $70. You pay $10 more and you get all of this. What Larian Studios is doing here is ensuring that people who really want to feel this guarantee that they own the game and that as long as they protect the physical medium, they can always access this game, will feel fully secure about their ownership of this game. I think more developers should kind of follow this model of doing physical releases with just all of the content in it. Doing something like this with games where, you know, they've seen a ton of updates and expansions and whatnot, and all of it being accessible via the disc. We need to see more of that. Now, there are instances where some games get a Game of the Year edition or a complete edition, but when it comes to PC gamers, that stuff tends to be just purely digital. Whereas with Larian Studios here, they're taking the time to ensure that PC players can have a physical medium that will allow them to feel secure about their purchase, about the ownership of this game. So I think that's just really cool. Now, Cyberpunk 2077 is also doing a physical release that contains all the content in it, some kind of Ultimate Edition, but weirdly, only the Xbox version has the Phantom Liberty expansion included in the disc. The PS5 version and the PC version have codes that will allow you to download that content. Only the Xbox is truly physically protected when it comes to all the content being in a physical medium. So this is a strange situation that's not fully ideal, unless you're an Xbox owner, in which case you essentially get the best package when it comes to a physical release for Cyberpunk 2077. But yeah, there are some companies who are championing physical releases, but the general trend right now is that companies want to get rid of physical editions altogether, and console manufacturers are trying to sort of inch-worm their way towards an all-digital future. And I'm just not about that. That prospect worries me more and more as situations like these become a possibility, where it can just kind of happen out of nowhere and there's no restitution involved. They don't send you a physical disc to make up for it, or even refunds or anything of the sort. They just tell you, hey, that stuff that you bought, say goodbye to it. You wasted your money. One prominent example is PT, which, while it was free, it was still like very valuable gaming content that Konami is fully trying to restrict. The only way to access PT is if you didn't delete your download on a PlayStation 4. If you try to download the game on PlayStation 5 or play the game on PlayStation 5, that's just completely restricted now. And so Konami's just trying to nuke PT from existence because of the complicated and fraught relationship between Konami and Kojima and that whole situation. But I mean, it's just content that's gone, that they're not trying to preserve in any way, shape, or form, and that has really high demands for preservation. And for those who didn't download it on time or whatever, they're fully locked out of that experience, which just really freaking sucks because PT is a freaking classic. Not to mention the mass deletion of digital games when storefronts close. I mean, that happened with Nintendo, PlayStation, Xbox recently. All three major platform holders have seen digital-only titles in particular completely disappear from the face of the planet, with only emulation or piracy essentially saving that digital content. I do think that digital medium has become so popular now that I don't think there's any stopping the trend of digital medium becoming much more prominent. But for those enthusiasts who genuinely want to, retain ownership of something that they'll constantly revisit, physical medium should always be an option, just like how you can, stream movies on Netflix, but if you really find this one movie or show special, you can get that Blu-ray and get all the goodies in it, but also just genuinely feel like you will always have that content with you. But anyway, that's one man's take, and this is everything you need to know about this situation that has raised discussions about this notion of an all-digital future, and why that is something that is far from ideal when stuff like this can potentially happen. Let me know in the comments below what your thoughts and opinions are on all of this, and to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.